Hello folks, and welcome to today's video. As a lot of you know, I think it's important to think about the words that we use when talking about games, because words frame the discussion, and the words that we use can therefore drive the discussion in particular ways. I am constantly railing against the overuse of the word content to describe what's in a game, for example, because content is a term for stuff that is independent of its quality and artistry. If we think about games as content, then what we care about is how much stuff is in them, not the quality nor the message of the game. And lo and behold, more and more games in fact do put weight in content over artistic quality and message, because that is the focus of the development industry. They talk about content so much, they can't move past that now. So today I want to talk about another word that I think is overused in games and detrimental to the artistic integrity of the entire form. It's a word that pundits just love to use, and it's a word that developers, publishers, and the media throw around with abandon because they know it scores them easy brownie points with the people paying the money. That word is consumer, and also customer. This video will be using consumer as the stand-in, but much of what I am saying will also apply to the use of the word customer in the games, media, and industry. So if you think about the word for even a second, consumer is mutually exclusive to the arts. A work of art is meant to be valued, reflected on, and retained on some level. It may be a work of art that's designed principally around being entertaining, but you are still meant to retain it after you're finished with it. To consume something, however, is to experience it for a moment and then, shortly afterwards, develop an appetite for the next thing. Consumption is tied up with the act of repetition, and rather than value the thing that you're consuming, it's about temporarily satisfying an urge. Consumption is an intensely capitalistic term that, in its current form, is most closely associated with products of very low value beyond the immediate satisfaction that they provide. More specifically, there's actually a product category. When we talk about product categories in retail and whatever, there is a product category called FMCG, which stands for fast moving consumer goods. And that category is for non-durable household goods like packaged food, toilet paper, over-the-counter drugs, and other things that are just very easy to access, consume, and then just move on from. The common thread here is that they're also all consumed once, and then the next time you need them, you consume something else from that category. These products have a very low lifespan. They're not designed to last, to be retained, or to really be thought about. They're just there as part of everyday life, basically. There is no value to consumption beyond the immediate. That's not to say it's not important, since if we don't consume things, we tend to die. But the question here is whether we want to associate playing games or experiencing an artwork with that same word, with consumption. Do we really want to associate games with a word that by its very definition is exclusively concerned with satisfying temporary urges and needs? I would argue not. Not if games are an art form. From my experience with the other art forms, games are the only one that beat the consumer drum as loudly and frequently as it does. No one gets up at the Academy Awards and champions the best piece of content that has been produced for consumption for that year, and Hollywood is hardly a paragon of art itself, but even Hollywood has the good sense to refer to the people that watch its films as an audience. The same is true for live performance, like with music concerts, opera, or theatre. When the Australian Ballet emails me about its upcoming season, they don't open things with, "Hello consumer, we are here to provide you with the best in content." They open things with, "Hello fan of the arts," or "supporter of ballet," or whatever, but they never refer to me as a consumer. Authors, meanwhile, think about their fans as readers, or possibly also an audience. Audience is a common word for these things in the arts. People who go to art galleries are not so much consumers of art as they are simply fans of art, and so on and so forth. Even expensive restaurants in which you're eating food do their utmost to differentiate themselves from eating a can of Campbell's soup. You don't consume a $200 slice of Wagyu steak. You have a fine dining experience. You consume a can of Campbell's soup. You do not go to a 5-star restaurant to consume things. And see, this is why this all matters. The more you associate art with something temporary and transient, the less value it can have beyond immediate gratification. You're not meant to think about that packet of instant noodles or Campbell's soup for hours afterwards. You eat it and get on with your life. That's not to say it's not pleasurable to eat that packet of noodles, and I do like Campbell's soup myself actually, but it's just not as important or valuable to your life experience as a work of art is by its very definition. Sadly, and this is why I think it is important to talk about, the entire industry wants you to think about games as though they exist for consumption. The entire industry wants you to see video games in the same way that you see a packet of Campbell's soup. If you are consuming content quickly, the easier it is to sell more of it to you. The more you savor what you're playing, or go back to re-experience it, to continue to think about it, the less available you are to sell more stuff to. This is the underlying reason why Sony's Jim Ryan got up on stage not so long ago and said that nobody wants to play old games, and why Sony tried to kill off the PlayStation 3 and Vita PlayStation stores. Sony was trying to push people into thinking about games as for consumption, or FMCG, products with expiry dates to be replaced by something newer and just as snackable. That is what Sony sees its games as. Ultimately, they're snacks. They're temporary, they're transient, they have an expiry date. It's not just the industry and the people that make the games that benefit from this, though. And so even the media and the pundits are all in on treating games like products to be consumed. There are only so many clicks that you can get from covering new games if people are still savouring the old experiences. It even affects what we focus on when we talk about games person to person over social media. The reason that there is such a fixation on frame rates, price, and game length in the social media discourse is because that is the same framework that FMCGs are thrown out to consumers for consumption. A 4-ply toilet roll is better than a 2-ply, so it's okay to pay a little bit more for it. That seems like such a silly way to think about art, of course, when surely the substance of the work has so much more to do with its meaning and potency, and not whether it has a better arbitrary number than something else. But, of course, that is how the conversations about video games go. The conversation is on frame rates, it's on value for money, and it's on how good the game is as a product to be consumed rather than its artistic credibility and meaning. See, FMCG products need to be a perfect experience for their price point and whatever. Art doesn't work like that. Art allows for flawed creations to have intense value. A flawed FMCG product, meanwhile, is subject to a satisfaction guaranteed or your money back deal, or in extreme cases, a product recall. By allowing the conversation around games to be defined by their value to us as products, we are all losing sight of the game's value as an artwork, where perfection is a much more subjective matter. And now, none of this is to suggest that game publishers and the likes of Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo should stop offering refunds and stuff for games that are broken. There is still a product element in the video games, but it depends on which one we preference. Do we prefer to see video games as a product first, or do we see them as an artwork first that just happens to have a product component? Based on the conversations that you see out there in the industry, you would have to suggest that people very much see video games as product first and art second, if at all. Consumer is a term that comes with commodification, basically, and commodification is a kick to the groin for the arts. I would suggest that we would be better off thinking of ourselves as an audience or a group of players when we're playing games. By doing that, we shift the expectation of what a game will provide back to the experience and the long-term value and impact that it has on us, rather than the temporary thrill, which is more akin to enjoying a really good cup of coffee or can of soup. Anyhow, that is enough for this video. Thank you as always for tuning in, and do let me know your thoughts in this topic. This is something that I am quite passionate about, because I do want people to think about video games as artworks, and the language that we use continues to be problematic for that goal. As always, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider liking and subscribing, because by doing so, you will see all of the videos as I upload them. And if you do enjoy my work, please do consider backing me on Patreon. You can do so for just $1 a month, or more if you're feeling generous. But in doing so, I will be able to continue to grow what I'm doing with this channel. And as an added benefit for you, there is an exclusive magazine, digital magazine, that goes out to Patreon backers, that has pages and pages, dozens of pages of content, of unique coverage, more of my thoughts on various topics to do with the video game industry and the arts more generally. So that is a bonus for people who back me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Anyway, once again, that's enough for this video, and we will see you at the next one.